spiritual stuff over here. But the Eucharist is God's no to that lie. It is this recognition that that place where we encounter Jesus Christ most fully and most intimately and most mysteriously is through this wonderful tangle of matter and spirit, body and soul. And marriage answers as a gift. It meets the deepest needs of flesh, spiritually embodied beings. And so when we talk about marriage as a gift, we need to celebrate and embrace the sexual dimension of marriage, because it is a wonderful and beautiful gift from God. And in some sense, I always make the joke that after good sex, a married couple should not reach for a cigarette. They ought to reach for the Eucharistic bread. Because in some sense, as sweaty bodies and sheets celebrate the beauty that is sexual intimacy. You have touched God in a limited and finite way because your beloved makes present to you a grace and love and fulfillment of your physical and your spiritual needs that are mirrored in the Eucharist. Yeah, I knew I'd get some attention if I said that. So marriage is a gift, and we ought not to be embarrassed about the church talking about the beauty and the goodness of sexuality, but also recognizing that we need to avoid the danger of uncoupling our sexuality from our spirituality. Because one of the most destructive things of promiscuous sex or casual sex or hookup sex is not just that it endangers your body, it also wears away at your soul. And it makes your soul sick, right? And that's the mystery, that the best sex is the sex that happens in the context of a lifelong covenant. It's embedded in one's spiritual identity rooted in Jesus Christ. So it's rooted in a gift that answers to the Eucharist. I'll talk about one more point and then skip a few. Second, the gift of marriage answers to our baptism. Baptism. We Christians have a bad habit of thinking about baptism as something that happened to me in the past. In my tradition, we baptize infants. In your tradition, adults? Adult baptism? Or both? We tend to think that baptism is something that happened at the beginning of my Christian life. I may or may not remember it, and now I'm going on with the Christian life. But when you listen to the Christian scriptures, and especially Paul talks about baptism not as a one-time event that happened in the past. Paul talks about baptism as what we do every day. That in the waters of baptism, we die and rise with Christ. So baptism isn't just what happened way back then. Baptism is what I am called to every day. That a part of me is called to die. That sinful, broken self that wants to control my beloved. That sinful, broken self needs to die and rise again every day. The Christian ethicist, my professor, now dead, Lewis Smedes, always started off this piece of his presentation with this line. He said, "I've been married for 35 years, and during that time, my wife has been with 5 different men, and they're all me." Right? Baptism points to the fact that the Christian life calls us to a dynamic, changing identity. And our understanding of marriage, we need to understand that. My wife married me nearly 20 years ago. If I were the same fool I was then, she'd really be in a bad place. Thankfully, we are both more mature and better people. And our understanding of marriage has had to be flexible enough and fluid enough to allow one another to grow and change. At times, that can be hard. At other times, it can be delightful and wonderful as your beloved discovers a new dimension of identity. And if we are a baptized people who are dying and rising every day, change is the new normal.